It stars David Soul from Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
believe he was Hutch. Of course, a couple of very famous scenes. We're talking about the scene where the main boy, his friend, who's become a vampire, is outside scratching on his window at night, and there's the mist around him. Awesome vampire makeup, and he's just basically hanging there. And Toby Hooper describes the scene about making it. It really was a legend, a fantastic horror movie, and again, just a total credit to them changing the vampire into what I consider to be, maybe besides Nosferatu, the scariest version of Dracula that's ever been done in a movie. So
and he controls, like, he manipulates. He takes over I think the priest that was there, and it scared me because I grew up Catholic, and so, like, when you see a movie where, like, Dracula starts manipulating the priest, you're like, oh, all is done. Like, there's no, because, priests are always supposed to be the ones that, exorcise demons and all that shit. And he had no power over Dracula, so that, like, with the other element that's freaked me out is like, oh shit, like, I thought God was going to protect him, but it didn't do shit. And so I was like, that's pretty fucking scary.
It is. Excellent writing by Stephen King, and the guy who played the vampire's name is Mr. Barlow.
Oh.
And Reggie Nalder, who played him with this emaciated appearance. And I just remember that scene in the jail cell where the one drunken asshole gets thrown into jail. And I think he was a wife abuser, child abuser, like he used to beat his wife. So he gets thrown in jail, and he's sobering up, and he hears the door unlocked, the key with the door unlocked, and all of a sudden, this amazing use of music, the psycho-type music, and just out of nowhere comes the vampire, stands up, and it's just one of the greatest vampire scenes in movie history.
So menacing,
Very menacing. Okay, so that's my number 8. DM, go on to your number 7 greatest horror movies of the 1970s.
I like the movie Orca. It was pretty scary.
Okay, Orca?
Yeah.
Okay, do you know what year that was made?
Fuck, my computer just died. Let's see.
I'll do this. I can look it up and discuss it a little bit if your computer's
Hold on. I got it.
Okay.
Okay. Gosh. 1977. It's about an orca killer whale who just loses his shit and he starts killing people. Takes place in Canada. Yeah, so he just loses his shit. Oh, an orca intervenes and kills the shark, saving Ken's life. Switches Nolan's target to the orca. Later, while hunting with his crew, Nolan tries to capture what he believes to be a male orca, but mistakenly harpoons a pregnant female. Oh, so it's just like a female orca getting revenge for killing the child. But yeah, man, it was a scary movie. And I was when I was a kid, I was into ocean because I watched Flipper and I'd watch all these like ocean, they had Jaws and all. So I was like big into ocean surfing and all that. Never did it, but I appreciate it. And so this movie scared the shit out of me because it's also like, I live in California, so you got Shamu and SeaWorld and all that. And to imagine a great white, an orca going rogue and killing people was like fucking scary as hell. Yeah,
and you don't usually attribute that to killer whales, but they are killer whales, and if there's one set on destruction, man can do a lot of destruction in the water.
Fuck yeah.
Quick question for you, DM. We are an hour in, but I mean, I probably have about a half an hour of footage left of. Should we take a pause and then do a part 2, attach it to it as one episode, or do you think you have a half an hour left?
Yeah, I gotta get ready.
Yeah.
Oh, it's at 6:30? No, we're good, man.
We're good.
Yeah, we're good. I just told I got more time, so.
We're good for half an hour?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let me go to my number 7 film here. Boy, this is what I'm really proud to include. This film really took me for a loop when I was a kid. First of all, it scared the hell out of me. Great acting, and it combines two of my favorite things brilliantly. One of my favorite time periods is late 19th century London, which of course was Sherlock Holmes, and of course at that time London was the superpower. There was, I believe, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I'm not sure if that was written around that time.
Yep.
It was a great time period for writing. It was a great time period. They were just churning and pumping out things left and right. Anyway, one of the negative things about London at the time was Jack the Ripper.
Yep.
And 1888, I believe, to I believe it was 1888. Coincidentally, at the same time, one of the greatest authors in the history of books, H.G. Wells, wrote The Time Machine.
Right.
And I'm not sure if it was exactly that year of 1888, but the movie that I have, 1979, is called Time After Time.
Huh.
Have you seen it?
No.
Okay. This movie, it stars Malcolm McDowell, of course, who starred in Planet of the Apes and Fright Night in the 80s. Great actor. I've always loved him. Also, too, it stars Mary Steenburgen, who is a great actress. She's Ted Danson's wife. That would probably be the least of her accomplishments. I mean, she she's so great, and no matter what the genre of movie is, she was fantastic in Step Brothers, which is one of my favorite Will Ferrell comedies. She plays Will Ferrell's mother in the film. Anyway, she's got a long acclaimed history in acting. And the guy playing Jack the Ripper, David Warner, who is a British actor, I can't say enough about the performance in this movie. I think it's Oscar worthy. I've seen a few of his other performances, which are tremendous. For that time period, he really probably is one of my favorite actors. And what it is Malcolm McDowell plays the main character from The Time Machine, creates his time machine, and what happens is Jack the Ripper uses it to escape justice, and that's the theme is that that's why he was never caught back in the day. And again, I haven't seen this movie in years. I'm not sure if what I think happens is Malcolm McDowell builds a second model or uses his original model. Maybe he had two different time machines. One of them is called not a floor model, but when you created we'll forget about it. But basically, you create one model, which is your test model,
right? And
then you create another one, which is your real one,
right?
So I think that he uses one of them to go after Jack the Ripper, who ends up in late 1970s San Francisco. And it is great cinematography around San Francisco.
Nice.
It is a great story. It is great acting, and it ends up to be one of the surprise hits of 1979. I can't recommend this movie enough. It's Time After Time, 1979, which is my number 7 selection for greatest horror movies of the 1970s.
Huh. Okay.
So, DM, what is your number 6 selection?
Piranha.
Piranha, 1978.
Classic. And they remade that too, and it was like, I think it's as a comedy because it was just too fucking ridiculous. But it's a great horror movie. yet again, I had a pool when I was growing up, and so it was like kind of scary watching a movie like Piranha, and it takes place in a lake, which is like, you know, ridiculous. But great, you know, special effects. The sound though was more. It was more about the music and the sound of the actual fish coming after the victims. Like, fucking classic.
Yeah. That is a movie that's, I think, considered the original, at least, not the remake.
Yeah.
The original is probably considered to be was somewhat underrated back in the day, and it's probably enjoyed a cult audience since then. So yeah, I would recommend that too. I didn't have it on my list, but it was probably right outside of my list. 1978 Piranha.
Good cast.
Good cast. All right, well, I'm going to move on to my number 6, if you're okay,
Yep.
PM. Number 6, very popular movie, 1976, The Omen.
Oh yeah, that movie scared me, and then it annoyed me because I was like, just kill him, like just kill the kid. How is this happening? You know, like, but I love that movie. It's
great. Yeah, great movie. It actually, what a fucking coincidence. I didn't even realize this. First of all, a very good remake with Liv Schreiber, I believe, in mid-2000s, like 2005.
Yeah.
2006, something like that. They were remaking a lot of these, Amityville Horror, all these, you know. That one was one of the better remakes, I think. I think it was very good. Anyway, what a coincidence. You talk about Gregory Peck is I believe, the president, right? And he's got his little asshole kid.
He's a diplomat, I believe.
A diplomat, yeah, I think you're right. I think they make him the president in the remake. That's the difference, I think. So we've got Lee Remick plays the wife. Anybody who's seen that movie, spoiler alert, remembers that scene where little Damien is riding his big wheel.
Oh, big wheel, yeah.
Right, throughout in the second floor. She's on a chair adjusting the lighting or something like that, or changing a light bulb. We all remember that scene and how so many great scenes. It's also the great scene, of course, where the nun comes out with a giant noose on the 7th floor of a cathedral, I believe, or some building, and says, "Damien, this is all for you." Jumps out, hangs herself in front of the crowd. Well, I was going to say, what a fucking coincidence. How about this? David Warner. I just mentioned him in time after time. What a change of character. He plays the media. He's a member of the media, I believe, or the how am I blanking on this? Well, what is the media in not the Illuminati, but what are they called in England? Come on, the Lady Gaga song.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. Hold on.
The media. The ones that go after celebrities to shoot them.
Oh, the paparazzi.
The paparazzi. So I think he's a member of the paparazzi, and he notices some things.
Yeah.
Takes pictures, and one of the most incredible deaths in the history of cinema.
The beheading.
Yes, that is, what an amazing scene that is. David Warner is fantastic again in this film. Unbelievable, a great cast, and unbelievable soundtrack.
The British guy, right? Isn't he a British actor?
Yeah, he's a British guy. Yeah, the British journalist.
He's one of those guys that's in a ton of those, like
tons
horror, special, sci-fi, like, but yeah, he's great. Like, he tries to inform Gregory Peck's character that his son is a fucking demon, along with a priest, and they're like, what the fuck? He doesn't, and Greg, he doesn't believe him. Like, no way, that's ridiculous. And it's like, nah, man.
Yeah, and this is a huge hit. They spent under $3 million and made over $60 million back in 1976. So monster hit. Lots of sequels that I didn't really watch.
Oh, they're good. I like them. I watched the whole series, and I thought it was great. Like,
yeah,
they kept it pretty good, man.
I gotta say, one of the funniest scenes in one of my favorite shows, Seinfeld, they talk about The Omen, and George, one of the characters, stayed up watching the whole, at least I think the trilogy, the three of them.
Right.
And they were like, "What'd you do last night?" I stayed up watching all those Damien movies. And he asked Jerry, he's like, "Who is Damien anyway?" And he's like, "I don't know. I thought he was like some Antichrist or something." And then Kramer shows up. And they say, "Kramer, did you see The Omen, the series?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah." And they go, "Who's Damien? Was he the Antichrist?" He goes, "No, Damien, he was just a mischievous, rambunctious kid."
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, all right, so that's my selection for number 6. DM, let's move on to number 5 for you.
The Exorcist.
How about it?
Yeah. Classic. Scared the fuck out of me. It was actually, of all these, like, as far as, like, scary, that scared me the most. You know, when the peeing on the floor and then, like, the voice. And it's, I guess, they had issues on the set. There was accidents. Like, it's based off of, like, true events. The Exorcist priests, the Exorcist movie, like the script is loosely based off of the story of the Exorcist priest, Russell Crowe's character in the movie that came out like this year, I think, or last year. And yeah, it's probably one of the closest, you know, because it's just so powerful in the way the priest, to the main character, how he's you know, he starts to be manipulated by the demon, and this how he's got to deal with it, and it's just so dark, and they just released a new one with the woman who plays the mother, and I can't remember her name. Yeah, it's classic. It's to this day, it's still fucking scary.
I'll tell you what, too, until it came out in 2017, oh boy, I'll tell you what, there's one I would have put on there. I somehow omitted it from my list. Oh, that's why, because it's not the 1970s. So it actually, finally in 2017, replaced The Exorcist as the most profitable horror movie of all time.
Oh, wow.
The Exorcist held that title for 45 years. Great theme song, Tubular Bells, fantastic little piano riff. I gotta say this, here is a very controversial take. This is mine. I didn't put it in my top 20. I think the movie is vastly overrated. I think it was boring. I think it's a hoax. I absolutely don't think that it really happened. I think it was perpetrated by the Catholic religion at a time that the hippie movement, even before the hippie movement went on, religion was suffering greatly. The Catholic religion we know is a business,
right?
And they're losing money vastly. I think it's ridiculous that there's only one type of priest that can. First of all, the demonic possession. I wouldn't believe it unless I saw it. Number one,
right.
I think there's back in the 1960s. There's all kinds of medical issues that people had that had crazy diagnosis by, and this was not diagnosed by a doctor or anything like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't believe the family. I believe the family with the priest basically lied about the story. I don't believe it's true, and I saw bits and pieces of it when I was a kid. I didn't see it as a whole until the 2001 re-release, and it wasn't a remake. It was a re-release, which I know it was 30 years after it was done, but I'm telling you, I went to the movie theater, and people were just bored, just kind of sitting around going, like, hurry up, and basically laughing at some of the scenes, because it just wasn't... Now, look, that is a very controversial take. You take a look at what most people's lists are of the biggest horror movies of all time. Forget about the 70s. The Exorcist is in just about everybody's top 5, including Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino and John Carpenter, and everybody that's ever made a movie basically says that this has affected them like that. I'll admit that my take is very different from everyone else's take on this movie.
Okay.
So number 5 for me, you want to talk about, it came out in 1978. the remake blew me away in 2003. I thought the remake was fantastic. It is basically it takes a foray about American consumerism. It takes place on a mall, released in 1978, Dawn of the Dead by George Romero. Is a tremendous movie. I think it's the best zombie film ever made. I think it's better than the original Night of the Living Dead. It came out in 1968. And I really can't say enough about this. It's nonstop action. It's incredible score and music. It is a precursor for so many different zombie flicks. George Romero probably doesn't get enough credit when we talk about the greatest horror directors of all time. He also, of course, directed Creepshow, another one of my favorite horror movies ever.
Yeah. I have to say I didn't really get into it, but I respect. He's like the zombie king. I like the remake better. I like the sequels. I like, I like all the zombies movies that came out recently. But I give it credit. I mean, it's the first of its kind. The overtones are great. It's classic. So, but
did you and I see the remake together?
No.
Okay, because it was around that, actually 2003. It was around that time period.
Right.
I know that I remember the remake. I remember the intro with the great Johnny Cash song in there. But anyway, okay, so that's my number 5 is Dawn of the Dead. Let's move on to your number 4.
The Car.
The Car?
Yeah.
Interesting. I've never heard of it.
Let's see. It's another movie I just saw, I saw late at night while watching, TV. It came out in 1977 with, I guess, Ronnie Cox. But, it's just this car that keeps fucking going. It's classic. It just keeps chasing this guy around. Maybe it was Car of the Road Revenge? Anyway, no, this is it. Yeah. It has this souped up, I don't know if it's a Lincoln or whatever, but it's like this really unique looking car, and it just keeps chasing this guy. The windows are tinted. You can't destroy it. It comes back to life. It's just this ongoing movie.
Very interesting. I've never heard.
And it has a remake, and it's been remade too.
Wow, The Car.
Yeah.
Do you know what year it was made?
77. And it's just really random. There's not really much to the plot. Just this guy trying to survive while this car is trying to kill him. It takes place in the desert. So this guy's just driving around, and so.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a possessed car.
Looking at it right now, 1977. Well, the star looks like Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, it's what's his name? Who was in the Amityville?
Oh, James Brolin.
I think so. Yeah. Is that James Brolin?
Yep. So here on IMDb. Cool. Was that a TV movie or a?
I don't know, man. I'd watch these, and I don't know which was what. And,
gotcha.
Good cast. Good cast.
Well, excellent, man. Good choice. You might be turning me on to a couple of horror movies I've never seen, which is what this is all about. Any of the underground, unknown movies on here, to me, are fantastic as far as everyone knows the regular top 10 that most people would put. I think, unfortunately, mine is probably more of that. But yours, I think, really has some good underground stuff, and very interested to hear what your top 3 is. So for me, number 4 is, again, very mainstream horror movie, but to me it was the first of its kind, and I rewatched it It's one of those movies where I rewatch it every 5 years. I just saw it maybe a year ago, and it was unbelievable, just as incredible as I remember it. The special effects, unbelievable. Probably more of a sci-fi movie, but it is scary as hell. It's 1979's Alien.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
Directed by Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Written by Dan O'Bannon. What's interesting about this, too, is the scene about the alien ripping out of the chest. I believe the writer has, he's got some kind of disease. Excuse me. He passed away, but he had some kind of disease. That's what it is. It's Crohn's disease, something that infects your lower intestine. It's basically bacteria.
And that's what he got out of it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the creature is how he felt. The bacteria was kind of eating through his body and about to explode through. If you see Alien, there's maybe a little bit of phallic reference to the face hugger. But either way, I mean, we're talking about an unbelievable cast.
Yeah.
This movie, one of the first female heroines, female action stars, really. Sigourney Weaver.
The first, yeah, great.
You're talking about, you know who claimed to be the first was, who's that girl that was just in that movie where she's trying to have sex with a high school kid?
Oh, Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah, she said that
Lawrence.
and felt silly after that because it's like, are you high? Like,
right.
Like,
she didn't mean to do it. I'm not trying to say she's an egomaniac.
Right, no,
she just didn't realize, and she corrected herself. Nothing against her. But yeah, Sigourney Weaver, what an incredible acting career she's had. She's the only person, I believe this is a record as far as Academy Awards. In 1988, she won the Best Actress for Gorillas in the Mist.
Yeah.
She also won Best Supporting Actress for, that movie. I'm going to look it up here in a second. It had Melanie Griffith in it.
Working Woman? No.
Working Girl, yes.
Working Girl, yeah.
It's Working Girl. I did not see, I might have seen Gorillas in the Mist and just forgotten about it. I think I did.
I did not see it. I was too young.
Yeah, I didn't, Working Girl, I didn't see. A lot of people I know saw it and liked it, but either way, she's had a great career. As far as the rest of the cast, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Veronica Cartwright was originally cast as Ripley, and they replaced her with Sigourney Weaver. They felt a little bit stronger. Tom Skerritt,
classic.
The guy with the mustache. Of course, he played Strawberry in Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke. The year before this came out, he ended up doing lots of different father roles and sheriff roles.
Sure.
And this and that. Harry Dean Stanton was in this movie. And who else? John Hurt, the British actor. Ian Holm was in this. He played the robot, basically. I forget what they call that name.
That guy's a sci-fi legend, man.
He is Sir Ian Holm. He has been knighted. He actually played one of my favorite renditions of Jack the Ripper. In 2002, I think it was the
Johnny Depp movie.
Yeah, the Hughes brothers, or
was it the Hughes brothers?
Well, it's the something brothers.
Yeah, but it's a great movie. They filmed it in Poland.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, man, the cinematography in that movie is fantastic.
Right.
But I mean, this guy's had an illustrious career. And Yaphet Kotto.
Love that guy. Love that guy.
Yeah, he was in Blue Collar Man with Richard Pryor, which was his first big hit, maybe a few years before this. He also, I believe it was him, that was in one of my favorite 1980s movies, Midnight Run, with Robert De Niro.
Classic. Like my favorite De Niro movie, I think, after I've always loved it. Classic. Just, he's funny. He's a straight man in it. One of De Niro's best movies. It's a comedy.
Totally. I think he's an FBI boss or something.
Right. He just keeps stealing cigarettes. No, it's classic, dude. Yeah, but the original Alien, like, it's just it's amazing. I think my wife and I watched it. I watched it again. I hadn't seen the original. I haven't seen Alien. I'd only seen it once when I was younger, and then I started watching all the newer remakes because they started revamping the franchise and kind of elaborating more on the base of this
Right.
monster's from. And so it's great, but watching it originally, it's like it's fucking amazing, and like I love it. It's classic because it's like horror sci-fi, and it's the first of its kind.
The actual alien design was so incredible.
Right.
The way it's like part spider, parts octopus or something, part skeleton. There's nothing but mucus and heat all over the place in its womb. It is really severe and hardcore.
Yeah, it's great.
And I'll tell you what, for years I thought that Aliens was better. The James Cameron 1986 film, which is unbelievable. I went back and watched the original, and for a sequel, I think Aliens is about as good as it gets. I don't know which one is really better. People go back and forth about that. Which one is better, the original or the remake? And you can make your own decision. Ridley Scott, the director, of course, who did with the Gladiator. I mean, he did Gladiator.
Yeah,
he did a bunch of stuff. Maybe Black Hawk Down or something like that.
Right.
Or anyway, all right. So that's my number 4. Here we're getting down to it. The top 3. The top 3 horror movies of the 1970s. DM, hit it.
Top 3. I'd say Halloween. Probably Halloween. Or no, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay.
I liked it. It's funny because it's like I just saw it for the first time because I watched the first time. I didn't see it. At all my entire life up until last year. I watched the remake. I just never got into it, and then I finally watched it, and it's fucking classic. And it's based off of a true story in Texas. So yeah, I think it's a good movie, and it's it's up there with Friday the 13th and Halloween as far as like big menacing characters, and there's no horror, there's no superpower to this, just some freak that grows up in redneck Texas and is abused and raised by fucking crazy ass fucking Texans. Classic, just gross and funny. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. You've never seen it?
I'm not going to comment on it yet.
Oh, okay.
So I have my number 3 as Halloween. Halloween could be number 2, could be number 1. I have it as number 3. Obviously, it's probably, if it's not the most famous horror movie score, it could be the number 2 famous horror movie score. The most famous might be my number 2 selection for the best horror movie of the decade.
Yeah.
There's a little heads up for that. But Halloween, I mean, again, some of these movies, they almost sort of, their reputation precedes them. We almost don't need to do too much elaboration on it because of how popular they are. I mean, if you don't know about Halloween, John Carpenter, I mean, I don't know what to tell you if you haven't seen it. And again, it's 2023, so you can try it now, but I saw it maybe when I was 8, 9 years old, talking about 1982, approximately 1983. Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, went on to become a scream queen.
Right.
I'm trying to think if there's any other details of it. I did not like the remakes that were done by Rob Zombie. Really hated some of the scenes. I liked some of the scenes. I liked the wacky 1970s, the scenes. People dressed like the 70s. people looked more like there was a little bit longer hair with some of the kids. There was Alice Cooper T-shirts, and there was like, so I mean, that part of it, I think he did a very good job at. But I remember a scene where all of these wooden boards were all shaking as if Michael Myers was like 20 feet tall or something. It just was a ridiculous Hollywood scene. So not a fan of that. But the original, love it.
Yeah.
I guess that's it for me with Halloween number 3. What do you got for number 2?
I'm done, man. I don't really try to think what else. Like, I think I'm good. We can just go off your list because I just was like going off of like, memory, and like I've watched so much stuff over time. I have to say though, I loved the remakes because of how Rob Zombie like kind of went and delved further into Michael Myers' past, like how he became fucked up. I mean, Rob Zombie is like, he's like Tarantino, where it's like, he loves horror movie. That's been his whole entire career. And he's, it's like, either like his shit or you don't. It's over the top. It's like he bites that genre, in the 70s like no other. And like, but he gets, he's able to get good music, and I like the cinematography. I liked the beginning scene where they show Michael Myers, how he develops into a fucking lunatic. Good cast. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. So what's on your list?
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. That's the only comparison I would make between Tarantino and Rob Zombie is that they both love horror movies. I think otherwise there really is no comparison with those two guys. But I certainly respect your opinion. Number 2 probably should be number 1. But number 2, the movie that really scared me in a practical way more than any other movie. Talking about 1975 Jaws.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to. I kind of separated like giant monster movies with like slashers and stuff. Like I have Jaws is up there. It didn't affect me like a lot of people did back in the 70s and 80s. Because I had a swimming pool, and I grew up in California, so like I grew up around water, and but I thought it was a great idea for a story, but it didn't scare me like that. I just was like, I love the acting. Richard Dreyfuss is great, who's now a douchebag. The guy who plays the captain is great.
How's he a douchebag?
He's a whiner. He's another. I think he's an anti-vaxxer. He's complaining that there's a cancel culture and that you can't do shit anymore. Blah, 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 and all that shit. But he's great in it. Roy Scheider, I mean, this guy is like, he's fucking great. I love Roy Scheider. And then the guy who plays the captain is great because he's like, Robert Shaw. He's just like, it's like he's got a pirate in him or something, like, or he studied pirate movies where he's just like, he's perfect. I love it. Yeah,
now him and Richard Dreyfuss really did not get along. During the filming of this, Richard Dreyfuss was, quote-unquote, who the whole time was complaining about the physical aspects of doing this film, of having to be on the ocean so much. And he's like, what am I doing this film for when I could be in New York doing Broadway shows? I'm an award-winning Broadway show. Right. What am I doing here? And then finally Robert Shaw says, why don't you get the fuck out of here? I'm going to pop you in the fucking nose.
Right.
Robert Shaw is kind of like an old-school actor, but kind of took this very seriously. I'm not a fan of Richard Dreyfuss either, but of course the most amazing score, so simple, just a minor note, judging.
Right.
And that is the guy who did the score, of course, John Williams, who ended up doing Superman's score.
Oh wow, yeah.
Jones and Star Wars, of course. I mean, he did
all of the
ones, Close Encounters of a Third Kind.
Holy
He really
shit.
was the major score master from 1975, at least for like maybe the next decade.
That whole era, man, was like you could take, like to me, I think the 60s and 50s had great TV scores, TV themes, and then like
Absolutely.
the 70s, great like movie themes, especially horror movie themes, you know, like scores. Unbelievable.
Great. Yeah, that's something that I today's, even a movie that I mentioned earlier, the Amityville Horror, won the Grammy for Best Score. If you go back and listen to that, it is creepy as hell.
Right.
Because they have basically a child choir singing, which is supposed to represent all the child souls that are trapped in the house.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, Jaws, great. To me, this is the thing. When I saw this movie, I remember being at the drive-in theater, the old-style drive-in theater where you take the big, huge fucking-ass microphone, 1950 style, put it inside your car, and that was how you heard it. Or you could tune into a radio station, an AM radio station, which would do the. But I think the actual unit that you had was better and louder. And we went to see Star Trek.
Nice.
And we went to see Star Trek 1 and 2. And my mom told me, and it's playing on the other side. If you remember the drive-in theaters, they had two sides of it. On the other side of the drive-in theater was Jaws 1 and 2. And my mom said, do not turn around and look at Jaws. You're going to have nightmares. And what did I do? I turned around for 75% of the movie and watched Jaws, and it scared the shit out of me to the point where, and I think the second one scared me as much as the first, which, by the way, I almost put Jaws 2 in the list of the top horror movies because I think it is a very good sequel. But I remember taking swimming lessons at the YMCA, and it wasn't, we're not talking about a small pool, we're talking about a monster-sized
like Olympic-sized
swimming pool.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to get in the water right after I saw that. And I jumped in, and every time I jumped in, I wouldn't go in without my eyes open. And the pool was so big, I could barely see to the other side of it. I didn't trust it. I mean, I was like, whatever, 3.5 feet tall. We're talking about a 6 foot in the old days.
Yeah.
We're not talking about little kiddie pools. We're talking about an 8 foot deep pool.
Yeah.
And I just didn't trust it, and I was too scared. And it affected me. The house that I talked about growing up at South Shore Drive was, we had a lake. And I know it's a lake. I know it's not the ocean. It's still affecting me. This is the thing. We basically had a little island, maybe 40 feet off of our dock, and we loved swimming over the island, going and hanging over there for a little bit, swimming back. This little portion underwater before you get to the island was so deep, all you could see was blackness.
Right.
And I remember looking down and just being so terrified at thinking that something might be down there. And it all was based off of Jaws.
Yeah.
So again, and dude, look, I said I almost didn't include this because I thought it was cheesy, a cheesy, like that. When I say cheesy, I mean like, of course it's almost like it doesn't need to be said. I almost wanted to make a stipulation in our list of like, no, I don't know, no movies that made more than 100 million or no more than 50 million or something, so that we stuck to smaller horror movies because, and maybe we'll set that rule for the 1980s. But was there anything else about Jaws?
Roy Scheider was scared of the water after doing that movie.
I heard that too. I heard that he took on because his character in there hated the water too, and I heard that in real life he. I gotta tell you, man, if I don't care if it's a friggin' mechanical shark or not.
Yeah.
One of the scenes is the mechanical shark, and we're talking about Jaws 2. But one of the scenes is the mechanical shark coming up and eating like a teenage girl. I mean, you can do certainly. Spoiler alert. You can do the captain in Jaws 1, where basically he slowly, as the boat sinks down, falls into the shark's mouth, which is, you know, there are some things that are not true. Like, a shark can't just sit there with its mouth open. It has to constantly swim, or it'll drown. So there's some impossibilities there. But the point is that I'd have a hard time, I don't care if it's a mechanical shark or not, going into a large shark's mouth, because that was a very realistic looking shark that they built, like an animatronic shark, and I know that they had some problems with it electrically, like it would just constantly sink. And
that's scary too.
anyway, what's that?
That's fucking scary too. It's like malfunctioning and shit.
Yeah. Because what's malfunctioning? What if it bites down too hard? What
right.
if it, I don't know.
In the ocean.
Like,
fucking in the ocean. Spielberg's like, no, we're gonna make this so realistic. Like they did like 90% of the entire movie in the fucking water, and it's like, dude, what the fuck? And so it's like you're really gonna get your actors to fucking snap the fuck.
Now, similar to another Spielberg movie, Poltergeist, you know that Jaws was rated PG when it first came out.
Right.
How ridiculous is that? And actually, technically, the scene with the child, the little boy, that got an X rating originally for Jaws. They had to really cut that scene back because Spielberg went off on that scene and made it nothing but teeth and ripping skin and ripping flesh.
Yeah.
And eating of human being and blood, and made it so gory that they said, you have to cut this down, Major. Okay, so we got our last one. We're up against it. We're almost done here. The last one, my number one, and the reason why I didn't comment on your Texas Chainsaw Massacre opinion is because it was my number one film.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the number one film, the number one horror movie. I would put it as all time, number one. The reason why is because besides the fact that Tobe Hooper is just what a genius this guy was, and I do not throw that term around lightly, but this movie he made right after he got out of school, I believe he went to University of Texas in Austin, and he basically made this film for $60,000.
Yep.
They didn't have enough money. He went to research. He tried to get corn syrup for blood, tried to get plastic bones, and guess what? He didn't have the budget for it. So he went to a local slaughterhouse and got real bones, animal bones, real animal blood. They shot in the house for weeks in 110-degree heat in Texas in August of 1973.
Right.
Supposedly it made it smell so bad that the cast members were throwing up.
Nice.
Another interesting thing is that the movie, there's two things about a movie. Number one, getting money to get it made. The other thing is getting it distributed through cinemas. And you needed a distribution company. Nobody would distribute that movie.
It was too controversial, right? I mean, it was just like, are you fucking high? What is this shit?
They wanted it banned. So you know who ended up distributing that movie is a company that was owned by the mafia in New York in the 1970s.
Nice.
And what they ended up doing, this company is the same company that distributed Behind the Green Door. And all of the original, what's the first or second ones, if you remember?
The porn flicks?
Yeah, not Debbie Does Dallas, but Behind the Green Door, Oral.
Oh, you talking about Debbie Does Dallas or Debbie?
No, that's in the late 70s.
Oh.
Well, anyway, whatever the first, besides
The Devil
and
Miss Jones.
Door,
no.
that was one too. There's another one I'm thinking of. It's not Jawbreaker. It's not like Oral.
Little Oral Annie.
Annie, is that one? I'm telling you, there's one more that I'm not thinking of. They distributed that kind. They distributed porn, and what they did is they completely ripped off. This movie he made it for $60,000. It profited over $30 million, which in today's money is, I don't know, $200 million, something like that. It's a ton of money. And they ripped them off. They didn't get paid. Basically, the cast got paid maybe $500 to make the movie until the actual that company went under because they were prosecuted. Basically, the owners of the company were prosecuted by the law, and they had to the movie and all the other movies, and this became public domain, and they were bought out by somebody else.
Really?
So finally, years later, the Tobe Hooper and the cast finally got paid a fairly good amount of money. It was either the late 70s or early 80s, but it took that long for them to get paid. Nothing but controversy surrounding this movie.
Yeah.
It looks like, in fact, Rob Zombie, we talked about him. This is his favorite movie. He's him and Wes Craven and all kinds of, basically, like, this looked like it changed the scope of how you make movies because it looked like a snuff film. Like, it was so dilapidated. I don't know the right word for it, but
just raw, dude. It's just like it looks like a documentary.
And some of the hardest scenes to watch. Number one, the scene where the girl gets put on the meat hook is just. It's not very bloody, not very gory, but that is just. Anything about the pain of that, the torture behind it, and the sadism is just beyond. The way Leatherface is so like calm. He treats the victims like animals. He grabs them like he fucking just clubs them. Like it's just, and you're just like, well, and see, I'm glad I watched it as an adult. I'm glad I watched it recently because like if I saw that shit as a kid, like it kind of scared me. I did. Yeah, that's the unfortunate part.
And it's like it was like so. It was just so raw, like, and it was just, and the fact, you know, the family and how evil they were. Oh boy, you know, everybody's in their dead bodies, like all chilling out, like in Psycho, you know. And but it probably would have really scared the shit out of me. You know, that's been done so many times in that kind of technique, you know, that it kind of desensitized me. Now it's like. I don't know, like human monsters. I call it human monsters my own genre name, where it's just if it's humans based monsters, you know, serial killers and all that, that shit fucks me up, or that shit's a little more disturbing to me than like monster movies. But to me, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre was just like it's like the one of the beginning of that. You know, it's the originator, just raw, fucking brutal. And I don't know if this is true, but like this chick I was talking to online, she's from Texas, and she said that movie is based off of a real batch of killings in Texas, and that's where they got the idea for the movie. I don't know if it's true. It's a good story, you know. It's like, and Texas is a great place to have the story, you know. Well, two different things. Number one, Leatherface obviously is his own character based off of Ed Gein. There was a story of, I talked to somebody, I worked with somebody who grew up in Texas and actually went to high school with Garth Brooks in Texas. Anyway, but she said the same thing though. It was based off of a real family that was basically this small town. They found a bunch of people killed. Yeah. It was just a small family where one family member was a sheriff, another family member worked at the slaughterhouse, another family member was the older patriarch of the family and owned this big old-fashioned mansion. And you put them all together, and basically the sheriff, obviously because one of the members was the sheriff, they did all these atrocities and got away with it for so long because it was a small town. Yeah. And the sheriff didn't let anybody get prosecuted for it. Another thing is that Tobe Hooper, this is a brilliant reasoning for making a movie. What he said is it was a statement again about the Vietnam War, really? Similar to Wes Craven making Last House on the Left. This is what he said. He says he thought that America had gotten desensitized to violence. Oh. And he was talking about how every night he would watch scenes of the Vietnam War. Two different things. Number one, scenes of all these bodies, piles of bodies, dead young men. So the whole thing is, and against the hippie backdrop of teenagers just wanting to get high and go to a concert or something like that. What they were doing is they were visiting a grave because they're supposedly were grave robbers in this area. The remake, they were going to an Aerosmith concert or something. Yeah, I like the remakes because they yet again they go a little further. I like. What's his name? Lee Army Elvey or whatever, the guy who played Full Metal Jacket, the drill sergeant. Like, he plays a good redneck psychopath cop, the permanent typecast. I liked all that stuff. And my wife didn't like the show on Netflix. There was a new one. He didn't like it. So I get what you're saying. Some of these remakes I like, some of them I don't. I watch them anyway because it's just interesting to see what they do. But yeah, man, that's interesting that. And when you think of Vietnam, it's like that shit went through like what, half of the 70s, and so like it didn't end until like what, 74, 75 or some shit.
Yeah. So the rest of the story is that he thought that Americans had gotten
desensitized. Yeah.
Yeah, desensitized to violence. So what it was is, yeah, I think what he did is he was basically saying, if you're so shocked with these 18 and 19-year-old hippies or these kids getting tortured and maimed in this movie, then why isn't there such a severe outcry for the Vietnam War?
Yeah.
Like you're banning my movie, and you want to stop it from being made, yet you believe all the war propaganda for a war that we shouldn't have been in the first place.
Right.
I think it's a tremendous statement. Night of the Living Dead, I guess there was also a little air to that as far as the influence being that. I'm trying to think, this is my favorite horror movie of all time, so I'm trying to get out every little tidbit about it that I love. I mean, the beginning of it, just the picture of the decaying dead body skull out there in the middle of nowhere in Texas, and the heat.
Yeah.
And there is no real theme song. The music is just reminds me of nails on a chalkboard. It's this really disturbing noise.
Perfect.
It's just like a and it just continues through the whole thing. Let me see if there's anything else about this movie. The end is just tremendous, of course, where Leatherface is wielding the chainsaw all over the place in anger for how it ends. I'm not going to do the spoiler for that one. I guess that's it. I just think that movie I saw that when I was 10 years old.
Oh, my God.
Too young to see a movie like that. It was so severely horrifying that I didn't want to ever watch it again. It was that scary.
Yeah.
And I finally did rewatch it maybe when I was in my 30s. Even in my 30s, I was like, wow, this is still kind of hard to watch. So to me, that defines a horror movie if it leaves that kind of an imprint on you. Okay, so that's it. That's our list of the top, we'll just say the top horror movies of the 1970s for a Dirty Mouth. This is Jesus. I hope you loved this. Please tune in next time for our next episode. Have a great night, and we will talk to you later.
All right. Thank you for listening. Rock and roll.